I waited 3 weeks for that appointment. The doctor walked in, stared at the computer, and never really looked at me. That's when I realized I wasn't a patient anymore. I was a file. I knew the appointment would be short before it even began. You learn these things after a while. You learn to read the room before you're ever called back. The waiting room chairs bolted to the floor. The television turned low, captions crawling across the bottom of the screen. A clipboard with the same questions I've answered for years, only now in smaller print. I arrived early. I always do. Old habit. Old manners. I sat and watched the second hand on the clock make its slow, patient rounds. 10 minutes past the appointment time. Then 15. No one looked rushed. No one looked calm either. Just occupied. Focused elsewhere. When my name was finally called, it was said correctly. I noticed that. I appreciated it more than I probably should have. The walk down the hallway felt longer than it used to. Not because my legs are worse. Just because the building felt unfamiliar in a way I couldn't quite place. The exam room was clean. Bright. Efficient. A paper-covered table. A stool on wheels. A computer screen already awake. The doctor came in quickly. Friendly enough. Polite. Professional. We exchanged the usual greetings. How are you doing today? Fine, I said. Because that's what you say when you're not sure how much time you're allowed. The visit moved fast. Questions came in a practiced order. Answers were typed as I spoke. I watched the top of the doctor's head more than his face. The glow of the screen reflected faintly in his glasses. I mentioned something that had been bothering me. Nothing dramatic. Just a change. A feeling that didn't quite fit into the words I had ready. He nodded. Typed. Nodded again. There was no moment where our eyes met long enough to say, "I'm listening." No moment where the room felt still. The appointment ended the way it began. Efficiently. I left with paperwork in my hand and a strange, quiet thought in my head. Not that anything bad had happened. Not that anyone had been unkind. Just the realization that I had been present. Without really being there. It wasn't always like this. I remember doctors who sat down before they spoke. Doctors who leaned back slightly, as if they weren't in a hurry to leave. You could hear it in their voices. The unspoken message was, "Take your time. I'm here." They asked questions that didn't fit on a form. How's your sleep? What's been worrying you lately? And when you answered, they didn't interrupt. They waited. I remember one doctor who always made eye contact before touching a stethoscope. A small thing. But it mattered. Another who remembered that my wife worked nights. Who asked about her before asking about me. The visits were longer, yes. But more than that, they felt complete. You walked out feeling understood, even if nothing had been fixed yet. Back then, care felt like a conversation. Not a transaction. You weren't just a body with symptoms. You were a person moving through time. A story still unfolding. And even when the news wasn't good, you felt accompanied. That feeling stays with you long after the details fade. Now the rooms are quieter. Not calmer, just quieter. The screens do most of the talking. Numbers populate fields. Boxes get checked. Protocols hum along beneath the surface, unseen but ever present. Everything is measured. Everything is timed. The doctor is kind, I believe that. Overworked, probably. Pulled in directions I can't see. But the visit feels like it's happening around me. Not with me. I speak, and my words turn into data. My concerns flatten into bullet points. I don't blame anyone. That's important to say. This feels bigger than any one person in the room. Still, there's a quiet sense of being processed. Like luggage moving along a conveyor belt. Handled carefully. But never really known. The cost isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It settles in slowly. You start to wonder if what you're feeling is worth mentioning. If it's just one of those things. You second-guess yourself. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just age. You rehearse questions in your head. And then decide not to ask them. Not because you don't care. But because you don't want to take up space. You leave appointments with a polite smile. And a quiet list of things you didn't say. And over time, silence becomes a habit. I ask myself questions I never used to ask. Is my pain less important because I'm older? Do I stop asking because I don't want to be difficult? Or because I've learned that difficult doesn't get answered? Am I being realistic? Or am I being dismissed? There's no anger in these questions. Just confusion. And maybe a little grief. Because needing care is vulnerable enough. Without feeling like you have to justify your presence. I'm not asking for special treatment. That matters to me. I don't need long speeches or grand gestures. I just want to feel like my life, with all its years, still counts. Dignity isn't about control. It's about recognition. About being seen as someone who has lived. Not someone who is simply aging. Respect doesn't have to be loud. It can be quiet. It can look like listening. Like pausing. Like remembering that time has added to me. Not taken me away. I think about aging bodies now. About how they move through waiting rooms and hallways. About how easily they blend into the background. I wonder what it says about us. Not as patients. But as a society. When the longer someone has lived, the less time we seem willing to give them. And I find myself asking, quietly, what does it mean to care for people when they can no longer be rushed?